Hi.
Hi.
I'm Effie.
I'm not.
Yes. And as you may have noticed, I have a guest for today's video. You're looking for the guest?
Yes, where's the guest? Have
It's
we got
you.
Nuna? Have we got Nuna?
No,
No.
Nuna's a cat.
And an embodiment of Loki. An avatar of Loki.
Loki would still be Loki in a cat form.
Yeah. In a Nuna's form.
Anyway, this is B, who I happen... Yes! Who I happen to be married to. I know, shocking, right?
We'll talk about this later.
He thinks he's a comedian, clearly. But he also... Oh, gosh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realise he was going to be a silly Billy.
You already said I was on form. You said it earlier.
Well,
I was on form.
Anyway, B happens to be Norse Pagan. So when I heard about the book A Fate Inked in Blood by Danielle Jensen, I thought it would be really interesting to buddy read it with B, since it does feature a lot of Norse mythology. So in this video, we are going to be talking through our thoughts and feelings on this book. And in order to facilitate that discussion...
Bjorn.
Yes. In order to facilitate that discussion, we are going to be using Corpile, which is a book rating system created by Gintara over at Book Roast. I will link her latest... What?
Corpile.
Corpile.
Sounds sore.
Maybe it's what Odin's ravens say.
And he's been sitting on his throne for too long.
On his throne, indeed. So, yeah, we are going to be using Corpile to discuss this book and come up with...
I imagine it's preferable from hanging from a tree for however many days it was.
Who?
Odin.
Odin did that. Okay.
That's how we got the runes.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
So, B is not familiar at all with Corpile. And I don't particularly use Corpile, so I will be referring to the spreadsheet. And at the end, I guess we will come up with what it gives us as ratings. So, should we just get into it?
Yeah, it kind of makes the whole video a bit pointless if we don't.
Okay, so first is the C of Corpile. So, C stands for characters.
To reiterate, Bjorn.
And I should also say, for each of these letters, you give a rating from 1 to 10.
Bjorn, 11. There are other characters?
Shut up. Right, let me explain what you are thinking about when you're looking at characters. It says, are they memorable? Were the secondary characters distinguishable, important, additive to the story? Did you care about what happens to the characters? Were they flat/one-dimensional? Do you have a good idea of their personality? Would it be easy to describe them to a friend?
I don't have friends.
You don't have friends? You have me. You have Shannon. Should we go through each of the major characters?
Yes.
Right. So I guess you want to start with Bjorn.
4.
But as far as character work goes, do you think his character work was good?
Yes. I mean, to start at the end, I guess. The sort of... What?
Just before we get into that, I will say this will be a spoiler-filled discussion, so just to be aware, we will be talking in full detail about this book. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, no, to start at the end, the betrayal of Freya was something I wasn't expecting at all.
That's interesting. I think...
For me, anyway.
Yeah, I think that comes into plot and writing, but actually, for me...
For a memorable character...
Yeah.
I mean, he went through the book assuming he was helping Freya out, what was Snorri, and then Harold, you know, and everyone in between trying to either kill her or capture her for their own uses. So to see him actually betray her to someone who wanted to control her, I wasn't expecting it, and it made for quite a memorable character in that he's not the sort of goody two-shoes, you know, rogue that he seems to portray himself as throughout the book. And it also makes you wonder what exactly his relationship with Harold is, because he was captured and went to live there as a hostage for a time.
Well, I have some very, like, strong, I guess, feelings around, like, how Bjorn relates to the other characters. Because, like, unlike you, from Fjoltinder, I knew that Bjorn was working with Harold. Like,
I never picked up on it.
So I'm presuming the person that Harold is talking to in Fjoltinder was Saga, and I thought it was Saga at that point as well, but I also, like, I thought maybe it was going to be Bjorn. Like, I thought that was the logical thing. So for me, like, I still think Bjorn had a lot of complexity, but, like, I did see his, like, betrayal coming. But also my perspective, and this could be complete, like, garbage, but, like, my perspective is that he sees Harold as a father because Saga is with him, and, like, he's a father in the sense that...
And I don't remember him ever going into too much detail about how he was treated whilst he was a hostage.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's very careful with his words, and I think that adds into, like, how well the character work seemed to be done, is that he is so precise with his words. Like, when he's talking about vengeance, he's always very much like, yes, I will have vengeance on the person, and never names Harold. So for me, it was very clear that it was going to be Snorri that he wanted vengeance against. But it was just very clever the way that his character was developed in that way. But I do still think he is actually Snorri's son, biologically, but the father of his heart is Harold. Should we talk about Freya?
Spicy, yes.
In terms of...
Spicy. It's not so much a sexualized thing, but she very much knows her own mind.
Yeah.
Struggles with doing what she wants to do, but knowing that it could harm her family, which she sees as very important. Her brother and her... Well, not just her brother and her mother, but also her brother's... Did they get married?
Yes.
Yeah, so her brother's wife, who I think was one of her best friends growing up as well.
Yeah.
But until, even after her mother sells her out to, I cannot remember the name of the huntress.
The huntress? Skade.
Yeah, Skade.
Skade, yeah.
Yeah, so even after selling Freya out to Skade and being killed for it, you could see that, yes, obviously Freya was upset that she had betrayed her, but she was also still very much, you know, completely taken by Bjorn. And again, you see that at the end with her reaction. But I'm interested as well, you know, at the end of the book, where it said, you know, she was being taken to Nordland to finally gain control over her own destiny.
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult one because as someone who is unfated, surrounded by people that are supposedly fated, did she ever really, like, cede control of her destiny? And that was a conversation that was touched on, that how could Snorri control her destiny when he was fated? I think, like, discussions of the betrayal, I think maybe we should talk about, oh my gosh, what's she called? Steinen. Because that one, like, I had the tiniest of inkling, but I didn't really see Steinen's betrayal coming. And for me, she's probably the character that I've got most questions about where her connection comes from. Is she Norderland through and through, or is it that she's a Skarlander? And
I wonder as well, given what she does, which is basically going around from village to village, telling story, you know, to simplify it, whether she has any loyalties to a particular country at all, and whether it's, what I say, it's, a selfish, personal sort of. I presume she's fated as well.
No,
Is
I
she
don't think so.
unfated?
Because she's touched by. You know more about the pantheon than me, but I'm sure she's the skulls are touched by a particular
I
god.
cannot remember it off the top of my head.
Yeah, well, if she's a child of a god, then she's unfated.
Unfated, yeah. So that could also have an impact on her loyalties and
true,
and what she decides to do with her her life.
I suppose we should talk about Snorri as well.
I can't swear it's a children's movie.
No, it's not. This is an adult book, and if you choose to swear, then that is your prerogative.
Prick, innit, really.
I mean, the thing is, though, what I really appreciate that Jensen did is she captured the
arrogance.
I was going to say I had the word in my head, the fanaticism.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Like
I was going to say it from a religious background, not just Norse paganism, but you see it in so many religious leaders, that surety born of faith, which more often than not leads them to having absolutely no morals whatsoever, because they are sure in their own heads that they are supported by whatever god or gods they worship. And you see it in Snorri. It is so... He believes so much in his so-called determined fate, to be king. What's the name of the country again?
Skarland,
yeah. To be king of Skarland, to defeat Nordland. Every time something goes wrong, it's seen as a test of the gods for someone else to overcome. I've noticed, mainly Freya.
Yeah.
But, Bjorn
as
gets
well,
it.
yeah.
Arrogance. Yeah, it's just that arrogance born of fanaticism, which really the writer does a very good job of making you dislike him, I find, anyway, from his initial...
Yeah.
When he took Freya away and, basically watched her kill her previous husband.
Yeah, Vragi. Oh, that was so good then.
Yeah. Axe in the back of the head. Flaming axe in the back of the head, yeah.
Is there any other characters that you feel like we should touch on? I mean, the pantheon of characters in them. Themselves. How did you feel about their depiction?
I mean, it's like with the runic magic, when Freya saw whoever it was carving runes. I've never come across that being a thing. But also, it doesn't suggest what runes are being used. So it's also difficult for me to connect it to a possible practice.
Yeah, but then you were talking to me the other day about that ill intent thing. What was it called?
What, baneful magic?
Yeah, you were talking about baneful magic. And I wonder, since from my outsider perspective, it seems like a lot of research and thought has been put into this book to make it not just tokenistic but actually representative. So I wonder if baneful magic will come into play in the next book, because presumably it's Steinan that was casting the runic magic, and that's who Freya saw. So maybe
it was made very clear that you had to be taught how to do this.
Yeah.
Because I'm not saying necessarily it's a lack of sort of research, but because it wasn't really touched upon. I don't think, how the runes look, what the runes were, even a description of what they look like. It's hard for me to say whether it's connected or whether it's a system the writer has come up with.
Oh, fair enough. But do you think the pantheon of gods was fairly well represented, what we saw of them?
Yeah, again, and correct me if I'm wrong, but what we saw of them were basically through the children of the gods. So you had,
true. I mean, we did see Hel.
Thor, yeah. You had, the children of Thor wielding lightning. What was Freya's goddess again?
Gosh.
Mia?
Lynn.
Lynn
Lynn and Hel.
Yeah. So, even in the, sorry, I'm horrific with names.
It's okay.
Fjol, the temple.
Oh, Fjoltinder.
Fjoltinder, yeah. Even in Fjoltinder, where, they were being worshipped, you didn't see too much of it. So, from what I've seen, decently well represented, but again, they weren't touched upon too much. You sort of saw the effects their magic had on the people who wielded it, and on the people it was used against.
Yeah. Should we come up with ratings for characters?
Yes.
And move on to the next section. So, what would you give out of 10 for characters?
I'll give a solid 8.5.
8.5?
Yeah.
My laptop is being decidedly unhelpful. Right, I think for me, I'd say character work was maybe I think actually 8.5 as well. I was going to say an 8, but actually it was pretty well executed.
And I think there are a few, in Freya's mother, for example, not much was done with her.
Yeah.
I feel that given Freya's, love for her family, maybe more could have been done with that.
I think Ingrid as well,
Yeah.
And I get that we're introduced
and her brother.
Oh yeah.
What was her brother's name?
Oh gosh, I can't pronounce it. It's like Geir.
Yeah.
Geir.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
Again, not much was done with them, but on the whole, most of the characters were very well written.
Yeah.
And did a very good job of making you like or hate them.
Yeah. The next section is atmosphere. So it says, how immersive was the read? Were you able to picture the setting, the characters, creatures? Was the energy in the scenes palpable, or was it not very convincing?
And, as you know, I have an ability to sort of picture a book
as
almost like a film, yeah. So,
and
yes.
I picture nothing when I read.
So, yes, I did enjoy it. It did a good job of invoking emotions and sort of providing a good atmosphere.
Yeah, I think whilst I don't visualize things when I read, I felt like I had a fairly good grip of the geography. I felt like I knew what was going on. I loved the scene as they were getting to Fjoltinder where they were battling the Draug, and especially when Freya, without realizing it, calls upon hell. I thought that was really cool. And that was very much like a satisfying scene, and I knew exactly what was going on.
Bjorn's cleverness in challenging the Jarl to personal combat, knowing he couldn't kill him, but also having enough faith in Freya that she would step in because she wasn't bound by the same oath he'd made.
Yeah.
So she would step in and destroy this creature.
Yeah.
Also, not being too familiar on sort of Scandinavian sort of undead, I wasn't aware just how self-aware the Draug were. I was expecting it to be the sort of stereotypical fantasy skeleton warrior.
Oh my gosh. Like Jason and the Argonauts.
Yeah, exactly. Rather than these creatures who, whilst cursed and undead, were still very much aware. You can see it in the Jarl's, the cursed Jarl's interaction with Bjorn.
I think as well it was really good the way they built up Freya's magic, the extent of her magic could do, because up until that point she could only shield herself, and it was.
Yes, you saw it in the battle. What was the fortress they tried to take?
Grindel?
Grindel, yeah. You see it in where as soon as she moved out of the way and her magic dissipated. Yeah, but that's a far cry from when it was initially introduced, where, as you say, it was just the shield that seemed to be magically protected.
But then I think, whilst she is the child of two gods and that is going to have an impact on her power level, I think it showed just how much she was favoured by Llyn. The way that she could use her magic as she did, it was very much a protective of those she cared about or what was important to her. Be interesting to see if that goes further.
Especially as this is only the first book in the
Yeah.
Was it a trilogy?
I don't actually know.
It was the first book
Yeah.
of a number.
Yeah. I'd be interested to see, like, probably not, but, like, if there was a way that Freya could weave both of her God's given powers together to create something really interesting.
And it could happen. I think as far as I'm aware, every other child of the gods was only favoured by one god or goddess.
Yeah.
So it could happen.
But, like, what we know of her hell powers, I don't know how that would work with. Although maybe she uses her Klin powers to shield those she cares about and unleashes hell on everyone else. I hope we get a corruption arc. That would be really interesting. Her just being like, I've been let down by everyone. I'm now just going to see the world burn. Especially because that's not what she wants to do at all. I'm pretty sure the next letter is W, which stands for writing. But let me...
I think I'll sort of divulge most of that to you because I don't know. I sort of with books, and this is something I've always struggled with. I've never been able to pick up on what's good writing and what's bad writing.
It's fine, like
it's from my point of view, it seemed to be written well. But I will be honest, it's always been difficult for me to differentiate between good and bad writing.
That's fair.
Which is why I said, I'd sort of let you almost take the reins of it, not because I don't have an opinion, it's just because you may have a more in-depth understanding of how well or not it's been written.
Well, let's see what it says. So it says, did you enjoy the writing style? Was the prose to your liking / unique? Was it hard to follow, not very readable? How was the dialogue to narration ratio? Did it flow very easily and felt beautiful but effortless at the same time? Would you be keen on picking up another book from this author, even if it's a different genre?
So I think, actually thinking about it, something that threw me a bit was the variable length of the chapters. Now, some of them were actually quite short, and some of them were considerably longer.
That's
and
fair.
How there was no sort of, there wasn't any rhyme or reason to it. You'd get a couple of short chapters, a long chapter, another short chapter. There was no sort of reason, and that may not be an issue if you're planning on reading the whole book in one go.
Yeah.
But when you're doing it chapter by chapter, it kind of throws. It threw me.
Yeah.
Mainly because books I've read before, they seem to do a decent job of keeping the chapters at a sort of similar length throughout the book.
Yeah, that's fair. I did probably a 50-50 split between reading physically and listening to the audiobook. And I do agree. So there's some chapters that are maybe like 15 minutes long, and then there's others that are an hour long. It worked in my favour because I was listening on Spotify, and the way it works with Spotify is it cuts you off at the end of a chapter when you run out of listening hours. And I just happened to like run out of listening hours on a 1 hour chapter, probably a couple of minutes into the hour chapter. So I got a whole extra hour because I was listening to it on Spotify. But yeah, it did kind of throw me sometimes because I'd be like, oh, I'll listen to the end of the chapter, and then that chapter would be an hour long.
Or, you're wanting to know what happens, you're thinking it's going to be a long chapter, and it cuts off.
Yeah. Although I will say that because this wasn't a multi-perspective book, that became like less of an issue. I think it would be more frustrating if it was multi-perspective and you were going through this hour-long chapter going, yeah, but what's happening about this other character that we're not seeing at the moment? And I don't know if maybe we'll see that in further books in the series. Maybe we'll see Bjorn and Freya's paths breaking off from one another, and we might have a multi-perspective.
It wasn't enough to ruin, the enjoyment of the book, but it was noticeable, and it did take some getting used to.
That's fair.
It may have been different as you were listening to it as well as reading it, so I don't know if it was different for you.
I mean, I don't mind so much variable chapter lengths, but I don't like particularly long chapters. And that was, I think, something that was difficult for me, is the longer chapters. I was telling myself, oh, I'll just read like one more chapter, or I'll read to the end of the chapter. And then I get stuck on a long chapter. And I find myself getting distracted quite easily. And with a shorter chapter, I can be like, okay, I'll just get to the end of the chapter and it'll be fine. But a longer chapter, my mind will run away. But in terms of the actual prose, I thought that the writing was quite good. I thought she did a really good job of, as I mentioned earlier, about the way Bjorn spoke about things. She did a very good job of being very precise with the words that were used. And
yeah, there was nothing wishy-washy about it.
Yeah.
No.
And I think there were enough breadcrumbs that if you were looking for breadcrumbs, you could pick them up. So you got the feeling that Steinen could be a little bit betrayy. I definitely got the feeling that Bjorn was very much on the side of Nordland rather than Skarland.
But I mean, were you looking for breadcrumbs?
No.
Oh, I was just saying, because I mean, I wasn't.
I think so.
It was just it could have been an interesting comparison if you were, but
no. So the thing is, I think I'm noticing this more and more, that because I read so much, I can see the literary conventions coming into play, and I can guess twists and stuff. But I think a good writer, you can do that and still really appreciate and enjoy the book. And that is the difference between a good writer and a poor writer. Is one where you see the breadcrumbs they're laying out and go, that's very clever, that's smart, I like that, versus you looking and going, well, that's annoying, that's really predictable, why aren't you revealing this thing to me? And I think there was that level of doubt that whilst I was fairly sure I knew the situation, there were a number of people that
could have...
and you didn't really know what the situation was until it was all revealed. What did you think about the spice, since we're talking about writing?
Bjorn 4.
Bjorn and his skills.
Yes. Which I don't think Freya appreciated at all.
I just had a thought about, that repeated line that he had where it's like, wherever you go, I'll come with you, even if it's to the gates of Valhalla. And it's like, they did come together, didn't they?
Spooch.
So the next section is plot. So, was the pacing good? Were there any parts of the story where you thought things have dragged on and gone a bit tedious? Was overall plot satisfying? Were the reveals worth the journey? Was this plot in any way unique from the other books you've read? Did it surprise you in any way? Has it left you wanting to know more? Was it too complex, too bland, just right?
Interesting.
I mean, for me, I felt like it was wholly unique. So I haven't read much Norse stuff. And, please drop recommendations in the comments because I would love to read more Norse stories. But I think it did a really interesting job of taking the Norse mythology and, rather than working on the familiar stories, creating something new and something that felt unique. And I liked that.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. But also you still have some familiar tropes, the Raiders, Shield Wars.
Yeah, Shield Maidens.
Shield Maidens, yeah.
What is a Shield Maiden, by the way?
Female warrior, I believe.
Oh, is that all
I believe, I'm still fairly new to all of this myself as well.
Yeah.
So if anyone wants to correct me in the comments, feel free. Yeah, you still get those, when I say Viking tropes, Viking being a job and not a job title, and not a people in and of themselves. Yeah, you still get those tropes, but I don't think they ruin the story. I don't think you felt, oh, this is another story about winged helmeted warriors in longboats raiding and pillaging. It's
I guess
refreshing.
It was that at the core, but it did something really unique with it.
It didn't overwhelm the story to the point where you thought,
Yeah.
Oh, this is the Vikings TV series and a book. Yeah.
Haven't watched that.
Take it with a pinch of salt. That's it's a great, for what it is. It's a great TV series, but
Yeah.
and this going off topic a bit, but this is
That's
the
fine.
same thing with Ragnar Lothbrok. His saga may or may have not have been embellished a bit, and also there is no evidence that the Blood Eagle was ever performed.
Yes, I did hear that.
But yes, we diverged.
We can diverge. That's fine.
So I think whilst it kept some of those well-known tropes, they took a back seat to a more unique storyline.
So, yeah, I think, and I don't know if this comes under plot or some other thing, but something that I liked was the way that you find that in more historical settings, there tends to be more sort of prudishness around sex.
Oh yeah,
and
this was very much all everything bad.
Yeah, and I especially like the way that the drop of blood and the fact that the god is literally in their bed with them sometimes. Sometimes they're not.
If you're Loki, you've no idea who you're fucking with.
I mean, you ain't wrong.
Or Loki. Yeah.
Well, I did think that's funny because Hel's Loki's daughter, right? And I thought it was an interesting nod the way that Freya's mother was like, oh, I thought it was Loki. And then it ended up being Loki's daughter. And it's like, well, you were almost there.
I also probably should have mentioned this in the characters thing, but the Huntress turning around and killing her, not because she just did it, but because she was disgusted that she had betrayed her own daughter.
Yeah.
I quite like that.
That
it wasn't just mindless killing for the sake of killing, which again is another sort of Viking trope.
Yeah.
That she was actually disgusted that the daughter had been betrayed by her own mother.
Here's a question. To your knowledge, if someone is barred out of Valhalla and sent to Hell, or Helheim, sorry, not Hell. Well, Hell's domain, Helheim. Yeah. Does Heim just mean domain of?
I believe so.
Okay, yeah.
Again, I'd have to look it up.
Yeah,
I believe
but
so.
if someone was sent to Helheim, is there any way?
Halls of. I think it's Halls of Hell.
Ah, that makes sense. Yeah. So is there any way for someone sent to Helheim to then go to Valhalla?
To my knowledge.
Okay, because I think that could be interesting. That Freya's mother would have gone to Helheim. And as a daughter of Hell, would that be something she might do?
I do wonder if there's a resurrection possibility,
I want to say Balder. Balder seemed really fun. You're like, is this a Balder? You're just like, Bjorn, Balder.
Spit. Which is basically what you said.
I am so sorry.
No, you're not. I'm not. I don't see why you should be. Let's moving on swiftly.
And we're on to intrigue. Were you wishing you could be reading this book instead of doing whatever you were doing? Or did it take some mental convincing to pick it back up? Were you intrigued to see where the story goes? What happens to the characters? How things will evolve? Did the story hold your attention throughout? Or was it not consistent?
And my issue is, I'm not normally a big book reader. So I think any sort of mental coaxing I had to do had nothing to do with the storyline. And it's just the fact that I don't read many books, so I need to sort of G myself up to start reading. But no, I enjoyed it. I think I had to limit the chapters I read a day just because mentally that's how I read, and it gave me time to sort of digest the storyline more as well. But no, I found there was no point, certainly that I remember, thinking, I want to be doing something else. I think it did a good job of keeping you going.
I think for me, It was pretty consistent intrigue until we got to maybe the last couple of chapters, because I think the sort of betrayal and reveal and whatnot.
That did seem to drag out a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially the way Bjorn was like, it's complicated. And it's like, just get the words out of your mouth, please.
You've done a good job so far of being concise. I felt that it kind of, in possibly the writers' wish to sort of elongate this massive betrayal, that they kind of stopped Bjorn being Bjorn. You know, he wasn't concise. He just kept on going for the sake of dragging the storyline out a bit, I think, you know?
Yeah.
A little bit, but...
I mean, I think that the way the book itself ended was fine and well done. I just thought the last couple of chapters, I found myself kind of going, come on, pick up the pace.
Yeah, they've been betrayed. You don't need to sort of hash it out.
And it was, I think it was also a little bit flip-floppy, because, I mean, whilst you seem very clear that you think it was like just an outright betrayal, for me, I think Bjorn didn't truly intend to betray her, and it was kind of like he just happened to be found. Like, he was intent on just running away with Freya. But, like, Freya sees it as a betrayal because she is a Scarlander through and through.
I still think that if it wasn't an out-and-out betrayal, they would have done more to escape it. I don't know. That's what I feel, anyway, and I guess we'll see with the next book. You know, hopefully Bjorn will give more of a reason than it's complicated.
Well,
and sort of expand on that a bit more.
I mean, I think my perspective was that he had every intention of running away as quickly as possible because he knew that Harold would be on his tail, but he got consumed by lust and stayed longer than he meant to.
It seemed they got found too easily. I don't know if that was more an issue, you know, going back to what you were saying about the last two chapters, you know, or whether there's something else, you know, is he being magically tracked maybe? I
was wondering that. I was wondering if it's, you know, that character that was killed fairly near the start of the story, Bjorn beheaded her in the hall.
Yes.
I wondered if someone is basically able to see through Bjorn's eyes in a similar way that they could see through her eyes. Because
and maybe then going back to the sort of oath system they had, whether he has been told that if he tells anyone about this, you know, this magical tracking or whatever, he's been put under that he would die, you know.
That's true.
Which is why I hope they sort of expand on it fairly soon.
I think they will. We have got a couple more to go. L is for logic. Were the characters acting in accordance to their motives? Were they clear? Were you able to follow the rules of the world, magic system of fantasy? Were those rules broken at any point? Did you have to stop at any point because things did not make sense or you found plot holes? Was the world building sufficient, overwhelming, clear? Do you think the author has left too much unclear or overburdened you with unnecessary information? Did it feel like everything fit the story, setting, motives, backgrounds perfectly?
Yes. Short answer. You know, I genuinely do not remember a part where I thought, hold on, this has happened here, so why has this happened here? The writer seemed to do a very good job of keeping it all. I mean, I'd be interested to know if you found anything which I didn't.
I think, apart from the whole, like, is Bjorn being tracked? And there is questions, but I also feel like there's internal logic in the story that could explain things. Beyond that, I think everything seemed to line up.
Yeah.
I think the magic system was very sort of, I don't know the proper words for magic systems, but it was like, if you were a child of this god, this was your magic.
And it very much connected to the god.
Yeah.
For lightning.
So Freya's magic was the one that expanded the most, but it all related to protection.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the thing is, every other magic user seem to have, you know, had their magic for a while, so you have no idea if when they initially started, were they in the same position as Freya? Was it small amounts that grew in time?
Yeah, I think also there's the element of like Freya happens to be the child of two gods that neither god's children have been seen before. So there is that space for her magic to be a bit more unpredictable and go beyond expectations.
Going back to, what was it? Logic?
One logic at the moment.
Which is one before that?
Intrigue.
You don't know whether each god has one child, many.
I think the implication is the many.
There are many, yeah.
Yeah, the implication is that Hlyn and Hel have never... Well, Hel's never had a child, but Hlyn hasn't for, like... If she's ever had one, it's been a long time. But the rest of them... There is the implication that there are multiple.
Okay, fair enough. I wasn't...
For example, Tora. We didn't know it was Tora at Grindel until she came back.
Yeah.
And we saw that half of her was burnt. So there is the potential that there's multiple. So,
but it's never specified, though.
Well, it's implied by the fact that Freya being the only one is unusual.
I guess, we'll see in the coming books.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting. Do we think we'll see Loki's other children?
Yes.
Yeah. You want to see the
good
Loki. Doggo? I really want to see Loki as well.
And more interesting... the children of Loki, how would their magic manifest? What would they do? What shithousery? Because we all know what Loki's
You want to see
like.
good doggo?
Yes, big doggo.
Yes.
Fenrir.
Yeah.
Odin is an oathbreaker, by the way, but
Oh, really?
In terms of that, but
go on.
Made I don't know the exact because I haven't had a chance to research it, but he made a promise to Fenrir, broke it by imprisoning him. I think this is what I've been told by others, very generally. But Odin is an oathbreaker.
I mean, it would be really interesting to see the Allfather get involved in things.
Wasn't it Odin? I seem to remember Odin was the Skald's god of choice.
Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah, so
there's certainly one of them.
Yeah, that's who the Skald are. No.
Who was it?
Seers.
Seers are Odin's children. Yeah.
And that's why they don't lie, because they're too fearful of Odin. But no, I'd be interested to see. Yeah, I would be interested to see him get involved in things. I mean, also, who's the shade?
I mean, certainly Freya seemed to be throwing a lot of shade at various folks.
You know what I mean,
the
though.
Spectre.
Yeah, I thought it was... I mean, I don't really know the difference, but I thought it was described as a shade.
Spectre.
Oh, okay. But yeah, who is it then?
Some were saying it was Bjorn's mother.
But she's alive.
Maybe it is Bjorn's mother. Maybe it's projection.
Or like a future.
Possibly.
So her future's in flames or something. Could it be Hel?
It could be.
I don't know enough about...
Because isn't she half...
Yeah,
her face is half
Is she
half
like
skeleton.
Two-Face?
Half skeleton.
Yeah.
Half her face is skeletal.
I don't know if I don't think I'll be able to find a description. Okay, I've found where it's described. Hooded figure, and they appear 3 times, isn't it? She's just described as being hooded and like embers and smoke. And like bursts into embers and smoke after. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see, because like this isn't going to be nobody. Like, why would a Spectre bother Freya if not to do this? Does Hel have minions?
I don't know.
Because if Freya had never been put on the path to meet the Draug at Fjaltender, she probably never would have unlocked or discovered her Hel gifts. Theories.
The problem with it being the first book of a series.
I know, we need the next one.
We're not going to get the answers until the next one.
Oh, how frustrating for you. And the
book talk edging. Anyway, so
the final letter is E for enjoyment, and then I've got a few things I wanted to
that's
discuss.
fun. I enjoyed
Enjoyment,
it.
yeah.
Yep. No.
I thought it was a really enjoyable book. It's really compelling. Just overall, a good time.
Yeah, can't really add any more that I haven't already added in other sort of sections, but no, definitely enjoyed it and looking forward to the next book.
Yeah. Should we see if we can get Corpel to actually figure out our ratings? So, the first thing I wanted to ask you, whilst we're waiting for this to do its thing, is who are Valkyries?
Winged females sent over the battlefields to take the souls of the dead into Odin's hall.
Okay. So they're not really warriors then?
I would have to double check if they are warriors themselves or being given the task or, the job of being a Valkyrie, or if they are, for want of a better term, Odin's creations. Yeah, I'm not sure if they are. I'd have to double check.
So I've got it to work. So we said 8.5 for characters. Atmosphere, thinking back to the atmosphere.
I'd give that an 8.5 as well.
I can't remember what atmosphere was looking at now. Atmosphere is how immersive, able to picture.
Actually, I'd go for a 9, but you know what I'm going to say.
You go for a 9.
I'd go for a 9.
I think I'd go for a 10. I had a very clear idea of what was going on.
Fair enough.
Writing?
I'd go for a 9. I think if I were not enough, sort of 8.5. To give it any more, I feel like I don't need to have a sort of better understanding of sort of writing in general.
So 8 or 8.5, do you think?
8.5.
8.5. I think for me, I'm going to give it a 9.5. I think it was let down by the final bit, but overall I really enjoyed it. Plot?
10.
10.
Yeah.
I think there was a little je ne sais quoi missing, so I'm going to give it a 9.
Yeah.
Intrigue?
9, I think.
I think I'm going to give it a 10. I find it really unputdownable. Logic?
9 again.
9 again. I think I'm going to have to give it a 10 for logic. I don't really think there was much missing. Enjoyment?
10.
10.
Definitely enjoyed it, yeah.
I'm going to give it possibly a little harsh, but I'm going to give it an 8 because the ending...
The ending sort of took it out,
yeah.
I just sort of felt even with the ending dragging on a bit, still.
Yeah. So according to Corpile, B gave it a 5-star. Cool. Does that feel accurate?
Yeah.
And
is this out of 5 stars out of 5, I presume?
Yeah. And I gave it a 4.5.
Yeah. Sounds.
That sounds
pretty
good. So other things that I wanted to touch on. Oh gosh, what did I say? I already touched on the Loki thing. So the final thing I wanted to touch on was what I think was a bit of a recurring theme in the book, and it was about fate and the idea of, were these characters predestined, or did they have free will over their fate, and the Norns just understood the threads of their fate so well that they could read them?
Possibly.
Do you have any?
It's an interesting theory. There was I can't remember that. I'm going to have to look up the name of the book series.
This is Future Effie popping in as I edit this video to say that the book series that V mentions here is the Tales from the Word Museum series by Robin Jarvis, which consists of The Woven Path, The Raven's Knot, and The Fatal Strand.
It was centered around a museum being run by these 3 old ladies who were actually the Fates.
Oh, that's so cool.
It's not
A Wrinkle in Time, is it?
No. And, it was very much as soon as they'd woven your fate, that was it, apart from some very specific circumstances. But I don't know. I mean, it is entirely within the realms of possibility, but I don't know how sort of set on their path the Fates are, whether they would do that or not. Yeah.
I feel like it brought up some interesting conversations around the kind of reassurance that if everything is predestined, then whatever happens is exactly as it's meant to happen.
But then it also leads to the arrogance of folk like Snorri.
Yeah.
You know.
Although Snorri is not a Norn.
No.
And so
no,
he
but
would not understand.
No, but he is, you know, it seems very much that he believes in his own destiny, and that's what the Norns have.
Yeah, I think.
And it's given him that arrogance.
Yeah, but it's interesting because either way that you look at it, whether it's predestined or free will, at no point is it actually like Snorri's just interpreted it, and like.
Is it actually?
Like, it was never Snorri's destiny. It was never his fate. So whether it was never his fate because he never took it as his own fate, or whether it was never his own fate because the Norns never wove it into a tapestry, it was never his. He just had that level of arrogance and fanaticism that when I'm meant to be, so I will be. Which
makes, you know, Freya being taken to Norland, you know, making it even more interesting because that means this destiny he's so sure of has just come collapsing down round his ears.
Yeah, well, something. So I mentioned quite early on in this video about how, like, I had theories about Bjorn and whatnot and his parentage. And basically, the oath that Freya makes to Snorri was like she couldn't say anything to someone like not of Snorri's blood, and apologies, ran out of space. This is closer, isn't it? Oh well. Oh my gosh, what was I even talking about? Oh no. I was like in the middle of a point.
No, it's escaped me as well. Bugger.
Oh yeah, about parentage. As soon as the oath was made, I was like, oh okay. So it's very specifically worded to be about like of blood. So as Snorri's son, Freya would be able to tell Bjorn about everything that the oath entailed and would be able to like follow Bjorn. And I thought that was like a really interesting, clever thing. And that's why like I'm like, well, Harold may be the father of Bjorn's heart, but biologically Snorri is his father. So interesting and so cleverly kind of constructed. I had another thought as I was saying that, but I've lost it now. What? You looking for my thought? It's nowhere.
It's gone to join Nuna's brain cell in the void.
Like I might add it in editing if I have any other thoughts. Did you have any other thoughts on this book?
No.
Overall, had just a good time?
Yeah, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, we should do more buddy reads going forward, shouldn't we? Maybe drop a comment of what books you think B should read. That's really unnerving. Should we say goodbye?
Goodbye. Say goodbye. Blink 3 times if you're being held against your will.
Oh my gosh, I apologise. Thank you so much for coming on this journey with us. Hopefully we'll have more of these in the future. But until next time, love you.
Bye.
Bye. B's like, I am going to be creepy.
I said goodbye.
Yes, but are you going to say bye again?
No.
Bye.
Yeah.